It's not about what you have. It's about who you have. It's not about where you live. It's about how you live. And it's not about what you do. It's about why you do it. Welcome to the Momentasize podcast. Today, I have a guest, a true story from rags to riches. He's built 17 doors over time. It's a $6 million portfolio, and he's been able to become a full-time flipper, completely financially free, full-time flipper, all through the game of real estate. Please help me welcome Chris Parrish to the podcast.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
So glad you came on, man. It's great. What's beautiful about this one is I'm just getting to know you just as we speak at this podcast. But give us your origin story, man. Give us a little bit about Chris.
Yeah. So I'm Oregonian, born and raised. I grew up great family. But I had some challenges too coming up, and I think like that's part of my story. I want to share with you if you're good with that.
Yeah, please.
So I'm born and raised from Astoria, Oregon, small town. There's actually, any Oregonians listening, there's this famous street called 8th Street. It's crazy steep. We lived at this house at the top of it. And my first memory ever is I'm 4 years old. My brother is 2. And my brother got really sick. And he had what's called croup. And it's like an upper respiratory constriction. Us adults, we can get it. It doesn't do anything. But when you're a kid and your airway is this big as it is, shrinks up. So he got really sick, was in and out of the hospital, and we were so like financially tight. The story that I remember was my dad essentially like talking with the doctor, like, "Hey man, this is expensive to have him overnight." I think he was in the hospital for a couple nights.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, "Hey, does he need to be here? Like, how serious is this?" Cause like, again, my dad works at Safeway, supporting the family. And so the doctor said, I think you can take him home. I'd prefer if he stayed here, but you can take him home. And the next day, we brought him home that night. The next morning, my mom came in, turned the lights on, said, "Hey, boys, get up." And I remember this. I'm 4 years old, and I looked down, and my brother had got out of his bed and crawled over halfway to my bed and died. And I remember like his cold body. And I bring this up because as an adult processing pain, totally illogical, but like I carried so much guilt for so many years for not waking up. It was like that poor little kid, crawled over, struggled to breathe and died. And so that was like my first memory. You fast forward a few years, my dad, again, just like working super hard, trying to support the family and stuff. And my mom, we were having this big 4th of July party, and my dad picked up an overtime shift at Safeway. And a family member of ours, we're just having a good family, get together on 4th of July. And a family member started drinking too much and started throwing like fireworks at kids. And it had got so bad, he like lit a firecracker and threw it in his son's pants, and he got it out and exploded in his hand. And my mom, being the strong, bold woman she was, approached him and was like, "You are freaking way out of line." And he just snapped and proceeded to beat her nearly to death in front of me and my whole family. Sorry. And again, I tried to stop him, but I'm 10 years old, I'm 50 pounds. So there's nothing I could do. And again, I'm just sharing this story because this is like guilt that I carried with me for a lot of years. Illogical. I know, Chris, you're 10 years old. This is not your fault. I know. But I wish I could have done something, and I couldn't. So you fast forward a little bit through my life. I got to junior high school. My parents had split up, as you can imagine, as a husband, father. Could you imagine being at work and this happens to your wife? Side note, the counselor, because I went through counseling after all this, said that they'd never seen anybody beat so bad and survive. It was very serious. And so obviously, I think just like guilt and stuff from my dad, they just couldn't make the marriage work. They ended up splitting up. This is all in the small town. And so my dad would go, he just lived across town, but we would go months, me and my sister, I had a sister now. We'd go months without seeing him. We'd just like run into him at the store. And it was like, whoa, hey dad, like
Yeah.
so what's going on? And we had, my mom, again, working as hard as she can, like, minimum wage jobs, trying to support us. But there was a period, counted it up before, but over a few years where we moved like 7 times. We'd get in somewhere, just fall behind on rent, get evicted, move. And we finally settled this in this trailer park in Warrenton called Alder Manor. She had found a single wide that she was able to sell or finance, and that's where we settled. And so, yeah, by the time I got to high school, I was just so angry and bitter at life. I was a self-proclaimed atheist, just mad, and I look back and just would bully kids and just, stuff I'm not proud of. But again, yeah, just so much stuff that I couldn't process. Really, really struggled in school. I had my behavioral issues, obviously. I know now, I think like I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think just part of this was I just don't fit in the school box.
Entrepreneurs never do, right? It's one of those things. Like every entrepreneur you talk to, they had some sort of challenge in the system of school, right?
Yes. A quote that like really clicked with me. I think it was Albert Einstein says, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll go its whole life thinking it's an idiot. And when I read that, I was like, that's me.
That's exactly. He says another great one. He's like, it's not that I'm a genius. I just stick with problems longer than most.
Yeah.
He just sticks with the problem until he can solve it. Right. So yeah, he was interesting, Albert Einstein in general, because one, that quote, but two, he struggled in school. Right. And then he ended up becoming one of the most well-renowned physicists in the world, but he had dyslexia. He had challenges in school as well. So when you think differently, the school system sometimes, because you think differently or because you're an entrepreneurial thinker, creative thinker, the school system doesn't really reward that. So it can be really hard.
Yeah, totally, man.
So you had the 1-2 combo. You had entrepreneurial spirit plus some real challenges at home. And so high school was just rebellion.
It was tough, man. I barely passed. I actually just thought of this the other day. It came so close to where I part of it was I just didn't apply myself. Like I would literally, because D was passing, it took me years to realize if I turned in my homework and showed up, like I got A's, but I didn't realize that till like year 4 in college. So I barely passed, literally by like the grace of one of the teachers. It was Algebra 1, which is like a freshman math class, but that's where I had ended up my senior year. And my second time taking the class, I had an F, or I was like right on the D line.
Yeah.
And I took this test and I got a 59. And that means I would not have graduated. And this teacher, like, bless his heart, I think he probably just knew some of the challenges that I don't know.
Yeah, saw potential.
Yeah. And so he brought me in to his office and he was like, Chris, let's go through this final exam. And this is where it all comes together. Yeah. And he was like, explain to me how you got this answer and did some stuff and was like, okay, I see how you got there. I'm going to give you half a point for that one. Okay. And then another one was like, okay, well, you were close here. You just dyslexia or whatever, missed a number here. Like, okay, I'm going to give you another half point. Got me 60%. I graduated high school.
Are you dyslexic? Probably.
I don't know, man. Yeah. I do mix up numbers all the time. People be like, what are you doing? So yeah, that was cool. A lot of blessings in my life too. I want to make sure like that's really clear.
Yeah.
And so, graduated high school, went to college because that's what we're all supposed to do.
Right.
I'm that millennial generation where we were all told to go to
invest in yourself.
Yeah. Invest in yourself. And so, I figured I need to go. Yeah. It took me 7 years to get an associate's degree. I flunked out over and over again. As a growing up with a family with no financial means, like the government would like pay for school. They have like the Pell Grant stuff. But I flunked and you lose it when you flunk. So I just literally lost everything on that, but I kept going. And I got to a point where I was I was decently down on myself about like 18, 19 years old. I'd say it was probably my rock bottom. I was living in the single wide trailer with my mom and just going nowhere fast. And in the same town I grew up in, but there was always this drive in me that was there. And I just didn't know what to do with it. And I think I couldn't get over some of my challenges. At 19 years old, I through a long story, basically, I was partying with some friends, and honestly, praise God, like I never got into drugs. Like I think I'm that personality that could have ran with it. And maybe a lot of that's just good parenting and stuff like, but yeah, I could have definitely went off that and I didn't. But yeah, 19 years old, I'm at a friend's house and we're all kind of drinking and stuff. And again, my family life's horrible. So like my friends had kind of become my family, you know? And we're sitting there and a guy brings out this like, I don't know, it was like Percocet or something. And we start taking these things and I'm just like, all right, whatever, you know, and I do it. We're all loopy and it turns into this like, dude, I love you, man. Like, I love you. It's a total bro moment. And we're like, we just get this idea we should get a tattoo together. And so this guy at his house, this is a true story. This guy, he's got a Bible on his kitchen table. And I'm like, dude, we should get a Bible verse tattoo. That'd be sick. Yeah. And so we grab the Bible. I've never opened the Bible before in my life. And we open this up. I go to glossary and we're flipping through, you know, like stuff on friendship. We're like, no. And then we come to this verse called John 15:13, which says, greater love has no one than this, that a man would lay down his life for his friends. And so me and my friends were like, dude, I would die for you. Yeah, absolutely. And so like, as far as my memory goes, me and these guys, I think it was the next day we went and got this tattoo right there.
Right there.
Right
it
there.
is.
Yeah. Me.
John 15:13.
John 15:13. Yeah. I remember the tattoo artist like, what does it mean? And we're like, I'd die for him or something like that. But yeah, so fast forward a few months, just flunking out of college and stuff. And I just kind of, it clicked for me. And this is a big moment in my life, which is why I'm bringing it up. I just was like, I need to read what's on my arm. And I picked up the Bible and I started reading John and just like, I was so moved by this idea of like this God who was a father who like loved me and would never abandon me, which from my story, you know, was a huge hole in my life. And so like, I was just so blown away by that. And like, that's really was a major pivot turning point in my life. And, so I essentially became a Christian over the next few months and just started serving. Like my life became less about me and more about just serving and helping other people. I would just go like grab a mop at my church and work like, you know, literally anything. I mean, I'm going nowhere. So it's like, I just want to help. Yeah. And, that was just this amazing time where like my whole life just really drastically changed. And I think for people, like I was trying to think about this, like if you're a non-religious person, like the easiest way to explain this is it's almost like you're adopting a belief system kind of that says like you aren't what you've done or what has happened to you. Like there's redemption. And I really believed that. Yeah. And again, for a guy like me, like it was huge because of just stuff that had happened, baggage I had carried. And it was like, man, I can get like a new beginning. Like this was great. And so really like that point, my life just started really changing. I met my wife shortly after, moved to Bend, got my associates in fire science here at Central Oregon Community College, was working for the Forest Service. Again, the entrepreneurial spirit there's still not there. Yeah. I don't know it's there yet. But
like the powerful pivot was there. For you, the powerful pivot was starting to read the Bible and then becoming a Christian. And like what I at least heard you say there was, you know, you went from in this moment, this depths, living with your mom in the mobile home, thinking, hey, I'm not going anywhere fast. And you had this really powerful pivotal moment. And all of a sudden, like you said, pretty quickly, it started to change, right? Yeah, it
really did. I mean, and again, it's not like I immediately, you know, became perfect or whatever, but it just like, it was a major pivot point in my life, just like you said. Yeah. So we moved to Bend. I had at this point, I'm like, I want to be a pastor. And so like I'd got my associates and then I got a job for the Forest Service fighting fires in the summer, which was awesome, by the way, because I got no family help with college or anything. So like I got my bachelor's degree with no debt, which I think is something a lot of people can't do. So that was great. Like having a job that I could make 20 grand in a summer and then like just live super frugal and pay for tuition out of pocket was awesome.
Good job.
And so, I got my associate's degree. Or my master's, correction.
Yeah.
I got my bachelor's degree in it's like organizational leadership or something like that.
Use it?
No, totally useless, dude. I would have never, like if I could do it again, I would not have gone to school at all.
But the relationship.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, honestly, for me is like, again, knowing where I come from, it took me years to realize if I actually like did the work and turned it in, I was actually quite intelligent.
Yeah.
I did well. So college, like the discipline of turning in assignments, like getting off work and being like, dude, the last thing I want to do is like write this paper, but I got to do this. And so like that was really valuable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah. The follow through, the consistency, the discipline, right? Making yourself do it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So did that. Ended up, I got a job at a church here in Bend. I still go to that church, great relationships. But it was the worst job I ever had. I'm not made to be a pastor at all. It was really difficult. But I learned a lot of really valuable skills because how the staff was run is like, you're essentially like just a self-employed person. And so I developed a lot of skills that I still use of just how to be independent, set your own goals. So it was cool. I mean, it definitely was a stepping stone. And then I got accepted to Western Seminary in Portland. We moved to Portland. And this is kind of where I discover the entrepreneurial spirit a little bit. We had bought a house in Bend in 2013 for $145,000. You know, that was a good move.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great move.
And when we moved to Portland, everyone told me, dude, sell it, take the money. We would have pocketed like $40,000, which again, dude, we're 24 or 5 years old, broke, come from nothing. I mean, this is huge. So it's like, but I was just like, I look back, I think a lot of it might've just been fear of just like, if we sell this, I may not ever be able to afford to buy it back in Bend again. Yeah. So we rented it. Some serious lessons there. I had 2 qualified tenants that I was choosing from. One of them was qualified on paper and one was not, but had a good cosigner. But there were these 2 young girls and just like my heart was just like kind of pulled for them. So I chose them. Yeah. Well, they ended up like slinging LSD out of the house, and like the neighbors who were friends of ours like message us and like, Chris, like I don't want to bother you, but there's 7 cop cars, ambulance, fire truck, all out front. And this is the second time this happened this month. Just thought you should know. And I'm like, what? Like,
yeah, you're like, oh my God.
Like, what have I done? You know, so really hard lesson learned. In business, do not listen to your heart. I mean, you can listen to your heart, but like, make sure it makes sense. I mean, the numbers you've got to like they were not qualified. And I just,
Yeah, they were slinging LSD to make rent payment, and you weren't, it wasn't going so good.
Yeah.
So you kept it though. You kept it. You moved to Portland. You kept the house.
Yep.
That became your first rental?
First rental.
So you got kind of a taste of what that was like. Obviously, it was a little crazy because you got some crazy tenants in.
Yeah.
And then what? You're in Portland now?
Yeah. So I'm in Portland going to Western Seminary. I got a part-time job at this maintenance property management company, which was a huge step for me. It was $20 an hour, which was for me, I mean, the highest I'd ever made was like 14. Yeah. So this was huge. And it was kind of set your own schedule. And again, this was also just kind of a pivotal job because I got to rub shoulders with a bunch of rich investors, like walking through, like just seeing, oh, you own this property. Like, and just, you can just see, like, I look back and like my mindset was like, oh, this is possible. Like I can own an apartment building this big. Like, whoa, like these people did that.
Isn't that a wild thing? You know, there's a great saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to change something, go and change who you're spending time with. And that right there is quite literally an example of how that happened for you. You went from really not thinking you could to now you're around these people and all of a sudden you're like, I can do this. Right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, so huge. I think of that saying all the time. I really do. Yeah. So we had like saved up another $20,000 at this point, I think. Maybe.
And how were you doing that? I mean, let's unpack that a little bit because you're making $20 an hour. Yeah. You know, you got that rental. What were you doing and what sacrifices were you making to get to 20 grand? A lot of people right now even have a hard time getting to another 20 grand saved up. What were you guys doing and what was that like?
Yeah. So I was also paying for tuition for Western myself, which was, I don't know, $10,000 a year or something. I mean, it was a lot. So when we were in Bend, I had, to be clear, I'd never made more than $14 an hour or something. But I had like, we've just always been super frugal, like always, even making that money. I mean, we always had like, you know, at least $8,000 to $10,000 in the savings account. And so I just always viewed, like, I would buy a car or something, and I literally, this is so stupid, but I would just view it as like, okay, there's $8,000 in my driveway.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways we got there was we had gotten these nicer cars, which to us were like $8,000 cars.
Yeah.
But when we'd moved to Portland, we had sold both of them and downgraded back to the level we really were.
There you go.
I was driving like a 2-wheel drive 1989 Toyota. The thing was horrible.
Yeah. But you sold your cars to make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, to do what I had to do. Yep. I mean, literally. So we did that. And then I think, again, we were just really tight on the cash flow. I mean, like, we weren't going out to eat. We weren't doing anything.
Yeah, you knew what you wanted and you stayed disciplined behind it, right?
Yeah. So somehow, I mean, we fought, scratch and clawed, you know, for just the money and got another. It might have been 15 or something, but we had bought another house in Gresham in the really rough part of town.
How are you finding the houses?
So this was in 2016, probably. So the market is booming.
Yeah,
multiple offers on everything. We had no chance. We had written 5 offers probably on stuff like 30,000 over and just not landing anything.
Nothing.
So this one, I think I saw it on Craigslist or Facebook maybe. And I called on it, and it turned out, I messaged the agent, talked to him, and this is just like the crazy workings of the world. Yeah. The woman who was our wedding photographer ends up messaging my wife, Ashley, saying, hey, like, are you guys like looking for a house by chance? Because she thought like we lived in Bend, you know, but she's just got this offer from Chris and Ashley Parrish.
Yeah.
And Ashley's like, yeah. She's like, that's our house. Like, what? And so there was this personal connection there and stuff. And so I think she was just like, well, let's do this. You know, and again, it's not like we came in under ask. I mean, we were like, we'll pay you whatever.
Yeah, full
and
price.
This thing was in a horrible location and it was a really rough house.
Yeah.
It was 760 square feet on 223rd and Stark, which is just like, this is no exaggeration. Our next door neighbors were meth dealers.
Yeah, so it was rough.
It was rough, but we owned it.
Yeah.
And it was a house we got to buy. And I, with our mortgage, even with 5% down, I think the numbers, it was like $1,000 or $1,100 a month was the mortgage. Yeah. And I knew that house would rent for 15.
Yeah. So you knew you were good.
Oh yeah. So I was like, okay, this is another hold.
Yeah.
This is another hold. So this is a house we're going to live in for a year or two. And then we'll do this again. We'll save up another 20 grand and we'll do this again.
Yeah. Were you scared at all to buy it, or were you felt pretty good? You had enough research. Your gut was good with it.
No fear.
Yeah, no fear.
I don't.
I mean, you have rare rent for $1,500.
Yeah. I'm just like, I mean, I don't know. There's
it.
Always maybe a little fear. I don't even know if I got a home inspection on it. Yeah, I don't.
No,
remember.
You just said I'm going to jump off.
I'm going to do this, and again, our house we had bought in Bend, like I was the guy, like nights and weekends, like just remodeling stuff. I mean, we've always that house was a foreclosure in Bend, so we made it pretty nice. Yeah. And then this house in Gresham was just that it'd been a rental for years. It was really rough and just came in. But I like working for this property management company. I mean, this is another just advantage that I had. I'd come into dirty units and just with paint and touch up and doorknobs, I was like, wow, I can completely transform this. So like, I guess my confidence in myself in the renovations was building.
Yep.
And so buying this house, which was really dirty and, but I was just like, weekend, I got this thing.
Yep.
And so, we closed on it, remodeled it. I worked way too hard. Like, my dad had like bought the rights to tear down this like $4 million house or something, like bought rights to tear down like the master bathroom or something. So I went and pulled off all the trim, loaded all the trim in my truck, and like took it to my house and like did crown molding and I mean, this is like,
you made it happen,
dude, 80 hours of labor to like make this thing beautiful. And it's a 760 square foot house, we got 2 kids living in it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But we did it. I painted the entire exterior with a paintbrush.
Wow.
Dude,
you didn't spray.
No, I just didn't know, dude. I was,
like,
I'm learning.
Yeah, I'm just going for
this is what I got. I don't have a sprayer.
I love it.
Yeah. And so,
you weren't thinking about the time into it. You just got to get it done.
Like, dude, like I can do this. Like I did not fear hard work. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, I can do this.
Yeah.
So we lived there for another 2 years. Same thing. I think we'd saved up another, I don't know, $20,000-ish. And I became a realtor at this point. And so like my wife, when I was in seminary,
you got addicted. So you're like, how do I get more of this real estate?
Because again, we were still just like super tight. I mean, my wife was a teacher online and stuff, so we were living off of her income.
Two kids at this time? Yeah.
She was supporting us while I was going to seminary.
Yeah.
Oh, and then this is a big pivot point, and it is for a lot of entrepreneurs. Yeah. I'm working at this property management company, going to seminary. I come across this book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, of course.
Dude, my life changed.
Yep.
I was like, this is me.
Yep.
And it was just, again, it was the perfect moment because I had one rental property at the time. So this whole idea of not trading my like handwork for money, like these tenants, oh my gosh, they're paying me. They're paying down the mortgage. Like there's cash left over. I'm like, this is huge.
I just got to deal with them doing LSD.
Yeah. I got them out like relatively easy. It was a sensitive topic, but I got through it.
You read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it just like most people, that especially if you have kids or you want a mindset shift, if you haven't read it, you have to read it.
Yes.
And then go on and read more of Robert Kiyosaki stuff, because he's a thought leader.
I would say, I don't know if you've noticed this. So there's been tons of my friends that have been like, you have got to read this book. Yeah. And they do, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And so I've accepted that like not everybody's an entrepreneur, but those few that are, it lights a fire on it. Because I've been just like, didn't it completely change your worldview? And they're like, I don't know, it's fine. I liked what he said about this. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Like this completely changed like how I viewed the world.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, exactly. And I read it, and then I read it again like right away. And it was the same thing. It was almost like my gut, my mind, the whole thing was shifting. I was like, whoa, how all this new information was just coming in. I was like, the way I saw the world and how I was starting to think about it just completely shifted. Yeah. I remember it. I remember vividly what it was like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So we're, my wife, when we had our second kid, my wife's like, look, I'll keep working and supporting us. She's like, but I really want to be home with these kids. Yeah. And so again, looking at the prospects, it's like, okay, my skills like really are only paying $20 an hour in the marketplace. And I remember this, I relate a lot to like younger kids, like younger men and women, like trying to look at the world, like, how am I going to make this money? For me, I needed to make $4,000 a month.
Yep.
And at that time I was like, this is impossible. Like how am I going to do this? Yep. Seriously. And I remember looking at this as if it was Mount Everest.
Yep.
And so a couple takeaways for me is I just started consuming, like I was doing over 50 books a year, mostly on Audible. Anything I could read about money, investing, business, I just started swallowing it up.
Yep.
And so I got my real estate license really quick. I think I did the whole thing start to finish in like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, work was no problem for you.
Work was no problem. Yeah. And so my wife essentially never went back to work.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks, dude. It was great. Yeah. I got my real estate license, worked as a full-time realtor for a good year probably. And then I always wanted to start a business. And I didn't really view me being a realtor as a business, which I don't agree with now, but I just wanted to start a business. And I just like, well, I don't know what am I going to start? And I think that I had some friends like trying to find like a house painter and just could not like find anybody with it for a reasonable price. And so I was like, there's my opportunity. Like, this is not hard. This is like $1,500 startup fee to like buy a sprayer and like do all this stuff. So boom, I did that. We started Ponderosa Painting in Portland, and started doing that. I was kind of hoping I could keep my real estate commissions like going. Yep. Like I did 11 deals my first year. I think we made like $100,000 or something like that, which was astronomical.
You got your license and you did 11 deals in the first year.
I think so.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. A lot of times somebody who gets a license, it takes about a year to season. What do you think the secret was there?
Dude, again, I think like as we're talking here, I'm like starting to realize like, okay, maybe one of my patterns is just not afraid to work.
Yeah.
So literally I got on Bigger Pockets and anyone with a pulse that was interested in real estate at all, I'd send them a direct message. Hey, let's get together. Let's meet. Let's talk real estate. Like, dude, I went out to coffee with people probably hundreds of times. Yeah. And so that's really what kind of kicked it off. And so I mean, I've got even just how the world works. Like there was a buddy of mine He was one of the first coffee guys that I went with. We own some real estate together. He's like got into apartment complexes and stuff now. We talk all the time. We're always, he's been a key relationship in my life. And
you just started you said, how am I going to get these relationships? And you just went for it, building them. Because it's so cliche because it's so true. Real estate is a relationship game through and through. That's what it comes down to. So you're like, hey, I'm just going to go again, all the resources you sounds like you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. That just like slammed the perspective open, and then it was just whatever it could be. So what is it like? Bigger pockets? What other resources were you digesting?
Yeah, bigger pockets were huge. For me, it was mostly Audible.
Yeah, you're just listening to Audible.
Yeah,
see, exactly.
And I still
you're working.
While I'm working.
Yep. Yeah. See, that's a key thing.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, maybe they're listening to music or they're driving, they're listening to the radio, whatever. They're BS. You were just maximizing the time. Boom. I do the same thing now. I listen to two times speed on Audible easily for me.
Yeah.
And so I can rip through stuff these days. That's a good way to do it.
No, man, again, because I look back, so I started Ponderosa Painting, and it really, in hindsight, from a business perspective, was a dumb decision because my real estate sales were trending so high. Yeah. And I just basically pulled the plug or, whatever, took the wind out of the sails.
You weren't putting the...
Yeah. And so, I built the painting business up to where it was enough. And I was essentially at the similar income level I was.
And were you painting yourself?
Oh,
or were you going to get... So you were doing everything, getting the contracts, doing the bids,
everything.
Painting it.
Everything. And again, this is year one of that. But in hindsight, sitting here talking to you, I'm like, I regret doing that. That's not the most efficient way to do it. But man, I got a doctorate in education because when I was painting, it's not a lot of mind work. So again, it conservatively 50 books a year and was just killing these books. And I've read books 4 or 5 different times because they've really impacted my life. So looking back, that was key, probably really could be a determining factor where I am today.
Yeah, you learned more in those 50 books that year than the 7 years in college.
Yeah, huh? Certainly. Certainly, man.
Yeah, 100%. So then you're painting year one. You did 11 commission. Then you started a painting company. What happened year 2 of those businesses?
Yeah, so year 2, I was like, okay, I'm going to really push on the painting business. Yeah. So I had hired, I think, 2 employees that year, and we. But again, this is total trial by fire. I hired the wrong people. I had one guy, really nice guy, totally out of his skill set to be a painter.
What do you mean?
Dude, just there's some people just can't paint. Yeah. It's they're just clumsy. They're dripping all over everywhere. I'm not kidding. The first day on the job, I'm standing here talking to this homeowner in front of these big townhomes in Lake Oswego, and I'm painting 5 of them. This is a big job for me. Yeah. And this guy... I'm like, okay, here's the big extension ladder. Go lean this up. First 30 seconds on the job, he takes the ladder and it starts about to fall over on a car, dude.
Backwards?
Dude, and the client's and I run over there and if I was 5 seconds too late, it would have been an insurance claim. And I just, all the muscle I have to save this thing. And I'm just this is the first 30 seconds. Yeah. I should have known. I'm just dude, I can see his heart. He's a good man. Yeah. And so I'm just
same thing like your LSD girls.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. There's probably a pattern there too. Yeah. So that was rough. I had him, and then I had this young woman who was pretty good. She was good. But what had happened is I had essentially created a 9-to-5 job. Yeah. Which I despise. There's no secret there. I hate the 9-to-5. Yeah. I love the freedom of just today. I wake up, I pray, meditate, read, cook breakfast for the family, go work out, and then I start work at 10. Yeah. And I'm usually done by 3 or something. And and if I want to change that, I change it. Yeah. I don't have to meet somebody there and talk through, and line stuff out. And again, I take responsibility for it. I was not a good manager, whatever. But yeah, it was rough. So we did, I don't know, we probably painted 25 houses or something. I'd have to go back and look, but it was okay. But I was man, this is not
the business was doing decent, but you weren't getting any fulfillment out of it. Yeah. And it was draining you. It was taking all the energy. Yeah.
Yeah. However, I will say really the heartbeat behind becoming a painter was trying to maximize my return on my time for money. Yeah. And so most paint jobs, even if it was just me doing it, I would average 65, 70-ish bucks an hour, which again, for me at the time, like my education does nothing for me. I have like, as far as I'm concerned, like minimal skills that like a big business would want. And so like, I just, just trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
And the heartbeat behind everything, I want this to be really clear, was always to hold real estate. Yeah. And so I was painting to make money to where I could buy more real estate. Yeah. I got super blessed at my church in Gresham. There's a very wealthy man there. And I got lucky, grabbed coffee with him. And he told me, he's like, Chris, I'm a builder. I make a lot of money. But what actually made me wealthy was holding real estate. And dude, I clung on to that thing. I clung on to that thing. You could
see it was the truth.
Oh yeah. And like, I mean, truth be told, like this is not, again, I have like different goals now, but like I never cared about income.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah. Everything was about like holding the real estate. Yeah. Like, how can I do this? And so as this has gone on, somewhere in this timeline, like I had a friend be like, hey, Chris, I see what you've been doing on these houses. You've got a few houses at this point. Like I just inherited like $100,000. Like I would love to do this, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Like if you find a good deal, let's buy it together. Yeah. Like a rental. And so it took a while. But in Redmond, Oregon, I had found this duplex that an agent had listed for sale, and for like $370 or something maybe. And I looked on the comps and stuff, and I realized it was zone 2 townhomes, and they were actually worth like $230 each side. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, like so. Of course, I came and tied it up right away, and it was actually like so we had to do 2 separate sale agreements. We had to do 2 separate loans. It ended up being quite a pain. Yeah. But that was awesome because in my mind, I had just bought this property. We had bought it and instantly had $75,000 in equity, which, not a lot, but again,
that's a good,
at this point in my life. Yeah. And so, half of that, how we structured that was we owned the property 50-50. He put the down payment down, which was, I don't know, 80 something thousand or whatever. So he had just turned his 80 into plus 35. So 15,000.
Yeah, we like that.
And then, for me, like I'd created 35 grand out of thin air.
Boom.
And then, market keeps going up, which is helpful. So we still own those ones.
Yeah, it's doing much better.
Yeah, now. It's doing much better now. So that was good. And then a friend of mine, that guy I mentioned, we connected with over Bigger Pockets. Yep. We had come across this, I can't remember if I did or he did, but he had found this 5-unit apartment that he had called about a piece of property, and the agent was like, well, that one's sold, but I have this other one that's coming to market. And so we tied up this 5-unit we bought it for $306,000. This is in Longview, Washington. We'd found this private money lender who would come up with the 60 grand down. I think we paid him 6% for their money. So we bought this thing for zero money out of pocket. I mean, that thing's, worth double at least.
Yeah, exactly.
And that one's pretty good too. Cash flow is good. So all that was kind of happening there too. So stacking up some units there. And then after that, I think here, this was a big moment. So I had gotten equity in property. So our house in Bend that we still had, I'd refinanced and I'd pulled out $80,000 or something, I think.
Yeah. And did you pay any tax on that?
No, of course not.
Yeah, exactly.
Refi,
yeah. Just why I asked that, if anyone's listening, what Chris did there, he bought that property for $140,000, and then somebody else lived in it, right? They paid down his mortgage, so he had mortgage paid on, amortization, and then as the value of that property went up, rather than sell it and have to pay tax, a capital gain tax, he just refinanced it, meaning he put debt on. Yep. Debt from from listening to Robert Kiyosaki, listening to all the books. Yep. Chris gained those strategies. He's like, hey, I don't have to sell this. I can still get cash out of it. And he refinanced, got 80 grand out of that property, still kept it, still cash flowed, and had to pay no tax on that. Yep. Right. And that's the power of holding those assets.
Yes.
And he still owns it. Do you still own it today? Or you sold it?
Yeah, we still got it. And then simultaneously we had that 760 square foot house we bought in Gresham off 223rd and Stark. We'd had one tenant in there, and it was just not, it was just, you weren't the class of tenants we were getting were not what I wanted. Yeah. So we sold that one.
Yeah. Because it was time.
Yeah, it was time. Yeah. And so I think same thing. We'd got another 80,000 or something. So I was sitting on 160 grand.
By the way, just to go from like thinking the max you could make was $20 an hour, and you were thinking to yourself, how am I going to get to $4,000 a month? Now you're doing a refinance for 80 grand, more than you ever thought you'd make in a year. You're doing that on one property that you had held. So was that ever like, dang, I'm getting this thing down, or did no, you're in the moment, just going.
No, and to be honest, I think this is probably a key point. Like this was terrifying because I had seen the classic American thing to do is go buy a new truck. Go on vacation, spend this money. And so it was terrifying to me. It's like, I cannot touch this money. This is an opportunity to make some plays. And so I have to multiply this. And so I was sitting on like 160,000, maybe a little less, 150-ish. And
of cash that you just
of cash, sitting in my bank. And but I did not want to sit on this long. And so there's this house came up in the town I grew up in, Warrenton, Oregon, by Astoria. And it was a ranch, 1,000 square foot house. Really rough, man. Like words can't describe how rough this thing is.
Worse than the meth one?
Yes.
Ingression?
Yes. Like 10 times worse. The woman, it was a hoarder house. She died in the house. Anyways, it was horrible. But it had good bones. And so it's just a ranch house, which I love. You've got 412 trusses and 4 walls. It's like, what can go wrong? Nothing. And so it was on a slab, and I think it came up for 150,000. And I somewhat familiar with the area. I saw it. I was like, okay, this thing's got good bones. And I'm in Sandy, Oregon at this time. We'd bought another house, another foreclosure, moved in there. And so I wrote a full price offer, went down, did the inspection, and I think there was a little belly in the sewer line, if I remember. So we negotiated. I think I bought it for 135 or something like that, cash. So I had like just depleted a huge portion of my money.
It came in and it went out.
Yeah. And but the comps were all 270. So I'm like, okay, there's opportunity here.
How much did you think the remodel was going to be?
So keep in mind, you're going to be like, no way. But I'm doing everything. This is not the most intelligent way. But I don't have a lot of money, and I'm maximizing what I have. So I did basically everything. I did the whole thing for 30
And you had
grand.
the freedom. You had the freedom to do everything.
Yes,
you created. Let me put it. You created the freedom to be able to do it.
Yeah, and that's true, because it took me 3 months from start to finish to turn this thing into a beautiful home. And I mean, it's basically, I'm not selling real estate. I'm not painting houses when I'm doing this. So I intentionally was like, okay, I'm going to give up a big chunk of income, but this is going to set me up, 30 years from now, 10 years from now. We completely renovated that thing. I had, was all in at, 160, 170 and was trying to do the BRRRR method.
And you knew it was 270. It was worth 270
all day long.
Yeah. So you created 100 right there.
Exactly. Yeah. And are you familiar with the BRRRR method?
What's the BRRRR method?
So it's the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's just a way to reuse your money, because part of the problem is like, great, I got 150 grand, but now it's spent. And okay, I guess I'll save another 150 grand.
Yeah, it's really hard.
It's hard.
It's a time issue, right? Because now you got to wait a whole another year. This way, you're taking the same money.
Yes. Recycling it. Yep. Yes. So, however, a little thing that, books don't like to point out very much is you have to do this seasoning period before you can refinance. So, oops. But it was 6 months. So I was just like sitting on, I'm renting it. I ended up renting it to my mom, which is cool. I rented to her at cost. So this isn't like a true investment at all. Like I make no money off of it.
Yeah, but that's its own investment.
It's pretty cool, man.
Probably the most important investment. So you took your mom from that house, from her mobile, and she's in that house now.
Yeah, her and my stepdad. Yeah. So no, it's cool. They're good people, and it's been great. I honestly, I forget that I own it. Yeah. Because we go visit all the time, and I just like,
hey, you're like, it's my mom's house.
Yeah, it's my mom's house. But obviously if the roof needs done, I'll write the check.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I eventually did refinance that, and I think I pulled out 200,000.
Boom.
Cause rates were, I don't know. I think my mortgage on it's like 4% maybe or something on an investment property. So I pulled out like 200, and it's really, the mortgage is super low.
Real quick, I just want to unpack that, just the lifetime of that money, what just happened. How much did you put down on your first $145,000 house in Bend?
About 10,000 probably.
Okay, so you put $10,000 down on that, and then of course you had to hold it, but then you got out of that 80 grand, right?
Yep.
What about the other one in Gresham?
I probably put at least 30-ish thousand into
Okay.
it.
Yeah. So, but you got out another 80 about in that, right?
Yeah.
So the key is why I point that out is, I mean, you got an extremely unique story. It's a lot different than me. I had all this infrastructure in front of me, right? I still had to go get the opportunity, but I had all this infrastructure, and I'm so blessed and grateful for that. But for somebody who doesn't have what I had, and is in a situation like you, what you have to do is go and find. It might sound crazy, like what now he's 200,000 out and another. But go and find a way to get that first 10 grand. Be extremely frugal like you were. Because what you did is you turned that 10 grand then into 80. You turned the 30 grand into 80. You got all this is all non-taxable, just so everybody knows. So took $160,000 through refinances. Then because you had that cash, you pounced on this opportunity. And then you took out another $200,000, again, non-taxable, while you still own it and your mom lives in it. So you took a basis of essentially what I would argue 10 and 30, so $40,000, and turned it into well over $360,000 while still owning the property. Yeah,
and that's one lane of that money,
that's
man.
One lane.
I know it went into multiple lanes.
Yeah, so if people feel like it can't be done, start with the action step of changing your mindset, getting around the people, like you were saying. What seemed like success to your family is if you went and got a really good job at Costco paying $25 an hour. That was like, then they're like, hey, I'm so proud of you, Chris. Well, then you got around these people who helped you think differently. You started these different resources, and it just started to, the momentum, the snowball effect is so real. So if you're trying to get started, like listen to this story, use it as inspiration and energy. Don't use it as like disappointment. Use it as inspiration and energy that you can do it, because you did it and you're still doing it. It's just the tip of the iceberg. But find a way to get to 10. And then over time, this isn't a get rich quick game, but it's pretty amazing what you did there. So I just wanted to unpack that for people. If you're listening, like Chris did it, you can do it. You can get connected with him. I'm sure he'd even be happy to help. But just an amazing thing, right? What an amazing thing.
Well, and here's like even where most of the expansion of that money is, like that house that we're talking about in Warrenton, Oregon is worth about $450,000 conservatively now. So, I mean, that's another, $250,000 in value. So it's like, I mean, that's really where we've got, that's probably been the secret, is just holding real estate.
And that's why you became obsessed with it when you met with that very wealthy man at your church who said like, hey, my real wealth came at the compounding of holding all these properties.
Yep. Yeah. So, ran with that. Trying to think where we went next. So at this point,
and you're just flipping. Are you full-time investing now? Flipping?
Yes. Yeah.
That's all you're focused on.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not a big transition from where we left off. So essentially we had lived in a really nice house in Sandy that it was a foreclosure, and we remodeled it. This one we decided to sell because when COVID hit, we had always wanted to get back to Bend. But it's like, you start building a business and reputation and all these contacts in a community. It's like, so hard to leave and move to a different community where you got to basically start over. When COVID hit, it was like, this is our chance. So we listed our house for sale. The challenging part, and one of the biggest challenges I had to face early on in my investing career, was getting loans. Like, lenders hate self-employed people.
Yeah, they hate them.
It is so hard. And so and to be fair, I had to convince an underwriter that, I'm moving my business 3.5 hours over the mountains. Oh, it'll be fine. My income is going to be just fine.
It's going to stay the same.
Yeah. And that was hard. So we bought the cheapest house we possibly could. I told the lender, I'm going to find a house in Bend in 2020 for under $300.
Yeah.
And the underwriter's like, good luck. If you can find one, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
So we closed on our house at $265,000.
Boom.
So boom. And I was like, you make sure you tell that underwriter.
Yeah, you put it out there. You made it happen. And how are you finding those deals, by the way?
Dude, that one was on the MLS.
Yeah.
It was sitting there. It was an ugly ranch in Deschutes River Woods. We still live there.
Yeah.
It was a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot house. And again, this is another sacrificial moment for us, because our house in Sandy was really nice.
Yeah.
And selling that and moving to this just was going backwards, really. I mean,
it felt like it at least.
It felt like for sure a 2-bedroom. We had 3 kids, I think pregnant with our 4th.
Do you have 4 now? Or
do you have 4 kids? Yeah. And,
how old?
10, 8, 5, and 1.5.
How much do you think, because they were obviously along this journey with you, how much do you think of your motivation came because of your children, your wife, your family?
Dude, a lot.
Yeah.
I know we're just like talking, the business stuff here, but yeah, I mean, like my wife's the best. I've learned so much from her. Like part of like some of the holes from like my upbringing and stuff was like lack of discipline. Like, I mean, she's the most like dedicated, disciplined person ever when it comes to like homework and saying, well, I said I was going to do this, so I'm going to do it.
She'll ask you like,
did you
do it?
And it's like, I mean, she's been huge. I've learned so much from her. And then just, dude, being a dad is so huge. It's one of like, I mean, the dearest things to me, hands down.
Congrats on having 4 kids.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It's great. Our house is crazy. We can't keep it clean, but that's okay.
That's all right. Don't worry about that. Yeah. There'll be a time and place for that.
Yeah. So that house, dude, I actually want to show you a picture of it.
Can't wait.
So yeah, it was a 2-bed, 1-bath house. We did a quick remodel on it just to make it livable.
Let me guess, did you do it all?
Most of it. I'm getting better.
Okay,
so at this point, I had found some flooring guys and started hiring some stuff out. But one quick point on what you just said there. It's easier to do that once you have some capital.
Yep.
Like, dude, when I early on, like I couldn't.
Well,
I couldn't. It's like I have $30,000 to remodel this house. Like, and if I showed you this photo, you're like, it's $100,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's like
you made it happen.
I made it happen. Like literally. I mean, it was just the cost of materials, and I did everything.
Yeah, it takes what it takes.
It takes what it takes. Yeah, exactly. So this one we remodeled it, and then I think I had started like flipping houses occasionally, like one a year.
Yep.
And it got to the point with the painting and stuff to where I was making more money flipping one house than I was painting 30 houses. And I was just like, okay, this doesn't take a genius to realize like I need to kind of pivot here.
Yeah. And was the painting probably taking way more time than the one flip?
Oh yeah.
It's taking all the time, all the attention, the employees.
No, it got to just be where I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do.
So if you looked at it on a return on time, it wasn't even close. Even if you were making 100 in painting and 100 on the flip, the return on time is not even close.
Yep. Exactly. And so, when I started out, I think flipping, like I just out of pure fear, like I think I went in on some partners on a couple times, like just partnered with some buddies and stuff. And like, but I look back on that and we're still close friends, but it's like, I was really the heartbeat behind it. I found the deal, I've kind of managed everything. I kept stuff going. And so I think that helped me build confidence to like, okay, I can do this myself. Yeah,
exactly. Those are always, to get started, it's always good to spread that risk a little bit, but it is hard. Partnerships, the hardest thing in a partnership is when, the workload or the work that's being put in ends up being skewed because it puts a strain, unfortunately, no matter what, right? There's nothing you can do about it. It can put a temporary strain on a relationship when you're doing most of the work and it's still 50-50.
Yeah, totally. And then we'd done this, I think we'd had our 4th kid and we're in this 2-bedroom house. And so we needed to pursue this addition. And like, dude, again, like I tend to do things the hard way. Like I can show you a picture here.
Yeah. I want to see it.
It would have been easier to start over, dude.
Yeah. But
but again,
you got to follow the pattern at this point.
Exactly.
And sometimes I always argue that remodels are harder to do than ground up construction. That's why we don't do remodels. We don't touch that game because we know the ground up game and it's step by step. Right? Yeah. It's way easier, especially if you don't know that much about construction. New build sounds funny, but doing a new build is easier than a remodel because you don't know what you're going to get yourself into. So
we're in a basement. It's not going to work.
Okay. Yeah. The Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. But I mean, literally, dude, like, the house looks like when I show people, they're like, what?
Yeah. I mean, from what it was.
Dude, there's only like, there's an 8-foot section of the house that's like, anyways, a massive, massive project. But again, I mean, I'm learning like this was huge.
And you guys were living in, this was a live-in remodel.
Yeah, dude, this was hard. I mean, this was a serious, we'll never do it again.
And where's your wife at with all this? Is she pushing against? Is she fearful? Is she completely on board? What's going on?
So she comes from a very stable family.
Yeah.
Her parents actually, her grandpa started the Pig and Pancake restaurants in Seaside.
Yeah.
So her parents and brothers like run the businesses and stuff. Great people.
Yeah, how many chains is that now? That's like there's Seaside, there's Lincoln City, there's Newport. What?
Yep. Yeah. There's 5 total. So 5 total along the Oregon coast, and they're really wonderful people.
Yeah.
But she comes from
that's a hard business though.
That's a hard business. Yeah. Again, they'd have to tell their own story. But it's hard. Especially through COVID and stuff. I mean, that was it was tough, man.
Yeah.
But so she comes from a really stable household.
Yep.
And yeah, I like marry me. Like we always just joke, you know, because it's just like hilarious that she chose to marry me.
Yeah.
But no, she's down for it. I think we both, it's hard to really count the cost on a remodel the size of what we did.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you're just in pure chaos
all the time.
And it was 6 months start to finish. And that was, again, me working like a madman, 12-hour days, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Just getting it done.
And
dude.
You could. And are you doing frame? Are you doing your own concrete, your own framing?
I did not do concrete.
Yeah.
I framed the whole thing myself. I sided the whole thing. I painted the whole thing.
Where'd you learn all the skills?
Dude, that's a great question.
Trial and error?
Yeah. Buying our houses and just doing it. Like I will say, like, that is just a gift that I have.
Yeah.
Like,
you're good with your hands.
Dude, I've become a renovation expert. And not even like I really want to be. It's just like it's just like I am.
You did it. You just did it.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I just know how to do everything, you know? But no, there's certain things like I'm learning some business at this point, you know, in 2020. So I'm hiring stuff out like drywall, insulation, all the stuff nobody wants to do.
You're getting your time back.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'll trade this money that I have now more. I'll just retire.
Yeah. And we had flipped a house earlier that year on the Deschutes River in Lapine. I think we'd netted like 150,000.
Boom, baby. That's so good for a flip.
Dude. Yeah, it was good. We do good.
That's big.
Yeah. So that like essentially paid for our remodel. And I took 6 months off of work, no income to do this remodel, you know?
Yeah. But that's a pretty special thing to go from, you know, the origin story we talked about, to go from where you were at to then now being able to, again, you created by holding on to that real estate, being savvy, being street smart, building relationships, expanding your mind, and just staying in the game. You created all this opportunity. Now, next thing you know, it's pretty wild. Most people thinking like, hey, I'm going to take 6 months off, no income, feeling comfortable to do that. You know, and I think, again, like real estate is a way for anybody who has street smarts and the willingness to put in the work. It's very possible.
Yes.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool that you were able to take 6 months off, still feed the family, do the remodel.
No, dude, it was cool, man. So as soon as that thing was done, it was like, all right, like this is time to like springboard like a little bit more into the marketplace. And so that was like 2021, I think. So 2022 came and that was a big expansion year for us. Like we tripled our income. Like I just never, you know, again, I never cared about income ever. Yeah. But we just, you know, boom, went and I think we did, there's 4 or 5 flips, but
all in Central Oregon?
All in Central Oregon. Okay. Yeah.
How are you finding the deals? How are you sourcing them?
3 of those in 2022, I think, were wholesalers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
What's
huge.
a wholesaler?
So essentially how I explain it is like, let's say you're selling a house.
Yeah.
I'm calling around, hey, would you interested in selling your house? Yeah. You say, sure. It's like, okay, well, hey, look, if you sell to me, I can do cash. It may be in rough shape. Maybe you don't want anybody knowing it's for sale. You don't want to deal with that. I won't be able to pay you as much, but it's incredibly convenient. So let's say I'll buy your house for $400,000.
Yep.
And you're like, that works for me. Let's do it. So a wholesaler takes that, advertises to his audience, to his cash buyers, and says, hey guys, I have a house for sale for $425,000.
Yep.
Boom. He takes 25 grand. He connects the two and walks away.
Yep.
So that's
So you were what you were doing is you were connecting, again, relationship game, connecting with these people who were finding deals, and then that's where your lead flow was coming from. So you weren't focused so much on like, hey, I got to find this deal myself. No, I'm gonna build a relationship. Let the deal finders bring them to me, and I'll do it. I'll do the money.
Yes, man. I've gotten pretty lazy in that side, and what I mean is I think it's an asset. But like so many people are spending so much time direct mailers, driving around looking for rough houses and stuff. Like I'm to the point, I don't do any of that. Like I've got a couple realtors, like really one specifically who's a rock star. I don't know how he does it. He's always finding deals. Yeah. I've connected with all these wholesalers, but
it's called obsession.
Yeah. But it's like, this didn't just happen, you know, like this was a lot of constantly meeting with people like, hey, I see you, you know, you're in the real estate. Let's get together and talk.
Yeah.
Like,
where are you seeing that? Are you doing that social media, Bigger Pockets? What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those two?
All of it.
All of it. What are the best ones you found?
Yeah. Bigger Pockets. I'm not on there too much anymore.
Yeah. You started off there.
Yeah, I think so. Like I was part of that like wave. It got really big. Yeah. And it, you know, again, really grateful for that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not on there too much anymore. Instagram's pretty big. Like I'm not I have a mixed relationship with social media.
Yeah.
Like I'm on there and I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'll delete it for 3 weeks at a time because
because it's a distraction.
It's a distraction, you know?
So where are you getting most of your relationship building at?
So we go to all the meetups here
Yep.
in Central Oregon. A lot of it is like my hard money lenders.
Yep.
Like I'm reaping fruit, I think is a way to say this. I'm reaping fruit from a lot of relationships I had in Portland as well.
Yeah.
Like a few of the wholesalers that I'm buying stuff from were from connections in Portland.
Yeah. What's that one called? DPW?
Yeah, I bought a lot of stuff from there.
Yeah.
Brad over there. Shout out to Brad.
Yeah. Shout out to Brad, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so he's good. We had a good one that year. It was another 150K one. Down in Sun River. It was a good one. So
see, guys, once you get in the game, you start to, it's all connected. You can start to get in. And what meetups are you going to Central Oregon for somebody who's like, hey, how do I get a hold of Chris?
Yeah,
like,
So there's a RIA. It's a Real Estate Investors Association that just launched. It's not big, which maybe
it's even better.
Yeah, if you're just starting out, it's not intimidating at all. Like we're meeting at like the Deschutes Junction Pizza House where like the roof's like caving in on us. It's not great. But there's like 8 people there and it's like you can really be known.
Yeah.
So if you want to come and connect, like I try to go. It happened last night and I just got back from a conference and I'm just like, I got 4 kids and family I want to connect with.
Exactly.
So I sat out.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few through Central Oregon and I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll start one or something.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Maybe you should start one.
Maybe I should.
Yeah, exactly. I like that idea.
Thought about it, but
yeah. Sweet. So that's what you're doing now, and you essentially tripled your income. So what's next for Chris these days?
Yeah. So we have. Can I pivot real quick?
Pivot,
just to finish this up.
Yeah.
So like basically having all these properties, like how I run my business essentially is like I've got all these properties with home equity lines of credit on them.
Yep.
It's so like I've intentionally in the past chosen not to sit on a bunch of cash.
How'd you do that? Because sometimes people have what is a home equity line of credit? And then how do you do that when it's not just your primary house?
Yeah. So the home equity line of credit is, let's say you own a house for $500,000, you owe $200 on it, maybe $300. And a home equity line of credit is a line of credit that you can borrow against the equity in that house.
Yep.
And it'll only go up to a certain loan to value ratio. So if I owe 200, it's worth 5. I can't take 300 because it's too risky for the bank, but I can maybe take 150.
Yep.
And so I connected with a couple just local banks and stuff. And so I've got them on investment properties. The challenge is they only go up to like 60% LTV.
Yep.
So if you're not in a high equity position on your rental properties, you're tied.
Yep.
So that can be a challenge on your personal residence. They'll oftentimes go up to 85, 90.
Yeah.
So that's huge. But that's what I use. Like I've got great hard money lenders that I use for my purchases. But I use some of my own money.
Yep.
And that's because I got to come up with 15% down.
Yep.
So $1 million property, I got to come up with 150,000.
Yep.
And then they'll actually finance the rehab too, 100%.
Yep.
But I front it usually, and then after the project's done, I'll get reimbursed and tell the proproperty. So
that's how you've been able to really make
that's how I kind of run the business.
Yeah, and the nice thing about those HELOCs is, you go, you tackle a project, you tackle that flip. When you sell it, that HELOC money that comes back to repeat. So you've essentially created like a little spider arm of all these HELOCs.
Yeah.
And that burst strategy, you're doing it without having to now, because you've pivoted, you held all these other properties.
Yeah.
Now your active income, at least you tell me if I'm wrong, but your active income is now flipping. So you're using all this equity that you held, which was smart. And then you're creating a lot more active income. What are you going to do now? I mean, now you're making a lot more. You're not holding it as much, and you're not like, hey, I'm not going to save up 20 grand to buy the next one. Now you're flipping. You're really compounding that money. So what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, dude. So the vision for my life right now, and I want to be clear, like this, the dollar amount I have on here is probably less important, but I would like to get to 30,000 a month in passive income.
Yep.
And honestly, the vision there, like it's kind of an arbitrary number, but like the vision that I want is like picture this, you log into your personal bank account April 1st and it's like, whatever, 12 grand. And then you live the whole month. You're just, you're living your life. Anything you need, you get. Like every time I go out to dinner with friends, I'm the one buying everything, all this stuff. I've just like lived and spent with no regard for money. Next month, May 1st comes down, it's at like 18,000. I go the whole month again, just spend and spend and spend. And then June 1st, it's like 25,000. Like I'm literally just have more money than I need.
Yep.
That's what I'm after. And it's less, I was just journaling about this morning. Like it's becoming less about me. Like I want to make a huge difference with other people. Like I want to be one of the biggest givers at my church. And I know what those numbers are, and I'm going to get there.
Yeah, you will.
I will get there. But yeah, I want to be one of the biggest givers. Just want to make a difference, man. I want to use my wealth. I want to be, I feel like, this is like scary to say, but I think like God has almost called me, like he's shown me this path to like make money. And like, there's a lot of people who can't. Yeah. And I think I can help a lot of people, specifically like single moms and underprivileged children. Like I want to be really involved and make a big difference. You just get, buying cars for people, like stuff. I'm going to get there. I can't wait.
You will get there. And that's a pretty amazing mission to have. You put me in tears when you opened up, because on the croup thing, actually, interestingly enough, my youngest son got croup, and we have resources, where we didn't have the same situation where your dad had that asked that really crazy question. And what a challenging thing. I remember the breathing, it's
terrifying.
It's terrifying situation. And those bills are real, if you saw, because we don't have, we're a startup company, so we have catastrophic insurance. Those bills are real. Yes. That's a real thing. Luckily we have the resources, et cetera, but that to go from a situation like that, you brought me into massive tears, almost started crying, because to go and have that sort of trauma, and then now have essentially taken all that trauma and turned it into this mission, this amazing, strong mission, and broken through what would typically handcuff somebody in their mindset and beliefs, maybe for a lifetime or multiple generations. Yeah. You're now paved the way to break that, both through yourself and then for the generations to come. And I just congratulate you on that. What a real vulnerable, real man it takes to do that. And it's pretty cool. It sounds like you're also just at the beginning of that journey. So it's pretty special that you're able to do that. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience? Anything else you want to tell them? Any resources you think they should focus on if they're getting started?
This is probably going to sound cliche. But I just like probably the biggest challenge that I've ever had to face is just constantly like overcoming, like the popular word for this is like limiting beliefs. It's hard. And I don't want to sit here and make this seem like this was easy, because this wasn't easy. There was lots of challenges, but keep going, persevere, just keep fighting the good fight. I don't know what else to say.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, we just got to keep going, man.
Yeah. Keep going. And before you know it, as long as there's this exponential moment, right? That, like you were saying, the snowball moment that happens, and then things, all that effort starts to shine a light on linear results. So thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you sharing your story. It's going to be the beginning of what feels like a great relationship. Definitely going to continue to invest in the relationship that we're going to be able to build. And if people want to get a hold of you, Chris, where can they connect with you? Where can they get a hold of you?
I am on Instagram. I'm not on there all the time. But it's Christopher M. Parrish, I think is my tag. So you can message me. I'll try to get back to you. Otherwise, I'll go old school. You can email me at chrisparrish21@gmail, and I'm pretty good with my email. So.
Perfect. We'll link to that, just so you guys know. We'll link to that in the show notes. And with that, we will see you on the next one, baby.